Hello, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to another match preview. It's Norwich City versus Watford on Tuesday night at Carrow Road. The already promoted Norwich City, so it really does change the dynamic of this one. A little bit nervous, as always. I think after the Luton game, we're going to be discussing that. We're going to be discussing Norwich on tomorrow night already. Bloody hell, that's come around quickly. We've also, I tell you what, we're going to start with the big topic on social media at the moment. I'm your host, Jacob, by the way. Sam and Elliot, as usual, joining us. It's the news that the European Super League is being formed. A number of clubs across Europe are involved. The biggest clubs across Europe and the so-called Big Six in England are involved. Sam, I just wanted to get your reaction to it. You were very vocal on social media about the proposals. That do seem to be gathering a lot of pace now. So what's your thoughts on it and take on it?
I just think back to the FA Cup final in 2019 with what we got to when we were 6-0 down. Yeah, a lot of Watford fans would say that was the best game they've ever been to, one of the best days of their lives. And you see when we go 6-0 down, all the flags coming up and all Watford fans getting behind the team. That's what football's all about. And with the introduction of this, this Super League, all of that goes. The idea of the underdog, the idea of anyone being able to do incredible things in football. I look at Leicester winning the Premier League or, Ajax's Champions League run a couple of years ago when no one expected them to get that far. That all goes completely out the window. It's selfish. It's ruining the game. It's shocking. The timing's awful in terms of the global pandemic. And, where we're going towards the end of the season with the European Championship coming up, what it will do to Watford remains to be seen as of yet, even if it does even happen. But for it to even be on the table, I think Big Six clubs and those owners should be ashamed.
Elliot, I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I haven't seen one person online say anything positive about the proposals. What's your view on it, the whole thing?
I've sort of stayed quiet on social media about it because I just think everyone said what's needed to be said. I think Sam's put it very well, both now and on social media. And we know how important it is to keep the Premier League and to keep the European leagues sort of how they are. We know it's not perfect. We know there are a couple of issues, but I think this is a great example of the biggest teams trying to maintain their wealth and maintain their status for as long as possible. I think it's quite obvious based on the teams that have opted to join. You've got Barcelona, who are in crippling debt at the moment. You've got Manchester United and Arsenal, owned by these American owners who are used to the NFL style and used to that American style of no relegations, quite a sort of rich helping the rich tactic. And I just think a lot of it is just a saving money tactic. And it's these big clubs that are struggling due to the pandemic, which is surprising, but it's just, I think this mismanagement has now led to them thinking, right, we've got to really try and hold on to our money now. You've got teams like Tottenham and Arsenal who are in it, and they are slipping. It's been mentioned everywhere, but they are slowly slipping down the league, same as AC Milan in Italy. And this is a perfect opportunity to stop that and to basically hide the fact that they're on the decline. So that's exactly how it is. And they wouldn't get away with it if it wasn't for a global pandemic, if it wasn't for the fact that a place like Anfield is probably the best example, isn't full up. I think if you had a packed Anfield tonight, for example, I can't remember whether it's home or away for the Liverpool.
Yeah, well, it's away, but I get the point.
Liverpool fans have gone down. They've gone down to Elland Road. There's pictures, and they're protesting outside the stadium.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if the Liverpool owners would be able to stand by that decision if they're standing in a stadium on a Saturday afternoon at 3:00 and it's a packed Anfield and they're all just being hurled with abuse. And I just don't think it's a tactic that they would try if it wasn't for this pandemic, if it wasn't for these stadiums being empty, and they know that they can sort of dodge the abuse. It's a stupid tactic, and the fact that, and even though it's not gone through completely, they should be punished immediately. The fact is they've all gone on record, they've all supported it, they're the founding members, and from here it means that they are now responsible and they should be punished. If they do a U-turn now, there's no letting them back in and just saying, oh no, it's okay. That they need to be punished financially as far as they can. I know you can't just go and fine them for £10 billion or whatever, but points deductions, transfer bans, long-term transfer bans, because that's the sort of thing that will sort of drain a club of their quality slowly. And I just think little tactics like that, just to bring them down to the level of some of these other clubs that are actually modestly going about their business. Teams like Everton, who are using their well-earned money to move to a stadium, and a fantastic stadium at that. So I just think they should be humbled a bit. And if they make any attempt to U-turn, they should be punished. And they should be punished anyway to the full extent that the Premier League FA, FIFA, UEFA can. So I just think they need to be punished, to be honest.
And that, Elliot, just on top of that, I know you say, I mean, before we move on, because we need to talk about the Norwich game, but it's just the fact that I know you mentioned Everton, but I look further down. I look at teams such as, but Barnsley, so well run in our league at the moment. No one would have expected that, they're arguably on the brink of promotion to the Premier League. Bournemouth, as much as we don't like them, incredible journey from League Two to the Premier League, 5 years up there. As I said earlier, Leicester winning the Premier League. There's so many stories.
Even Burnley. I think they were out of the Football League, weren't they? And then they
so
rose
many
up the ranks.
It's clever, shrewd business like that is the rewarding part of football, and that's the main bit that's keeping the spirit of football alive. Barnsley's a perfect example. They've been clever. They've used analytics. They've used all of those sorts of strategies with statistics to work out the most effective and cost-effective signings, and they're reaping the rewards of that now. Brentford did it as well. There are a couple of other sides. They've really just they've not got massive pockets of money, but they're using the money that they've had to be really clever, slowly work their way up the leagues, be clever and be careful. And we're going to start seeing more of that. And hopefully, I think that the positive we could get out of the Super League is teams like that will be rewarded with hopefully a Premier League stay, and they might even be fighting for Europe with the way things are going. So I just hope that if anything positive comes out of it, it's those teams that are then benefited and they're given the rewards that they deserve.
Yeah, well said, lads. To be honest, I echo everything you guys have just said. I think also what this whole thing really made me realise is, I guess, the disconnect between some of these football clubs and their supporters. And actually, if we're going to spin a positive on it, actually highlighted the connection I think we all three of us and other Watford fans have with our football club. I think, over the past years, we've seen Watford socials today, the connection that we have with the football club, the family and community values, the way the club really did support the NHS in a time of crisis, as we've seen over the past year, I think does highlight how those morals and values have continued. And, our club really does care about the supporters. So, yes, I'm certainly against the whole European Super League, absolutely. But if we're going to maybe spin a little bit of a different slant on it, I'm very proud to be a Watford supporter and very proud that we've got a club that cares about the supporters. So there we go. I tell you what, we'll talk about Watford now. Norwich City versus Watford at Carrow Road. Sam, have you got over Saturday's performance and result already, or are you still a little bit? Still, is the hangover continue to Monday?
It is. It's really frustrating. I mean, for me, I always think that all right, you can lose games, even if it's a derby, but as long as I see every player out there giving 110%, all right, we'll lose to the better team on the day. But that was awful on Saturday. No, we didn't get a match reaction in. So this is my first time properly sharing my views, but it was a really, really frustrating game to watch. After about 30 seconds, could just tell it wasn't right, and something was wrong and it wasn't going to go well. But I suppose the nature of the championship is, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you can't really dwell on these results, and we have to move on and look forward to tomorrow night with now what is an absolutely massive game, even bigger now, that we lost the other day. And yeah, I don't know whether to say, we'll touch on it, but whether it's a must win or a must not lose, but we certainly can't be losing tomorrow night.
Elliot, your thoughts on Saturday? Blimey, that. You know what? When I did the match reaction, Elliot, I think we all were hurting as Watford fans, not only because of the magnitude of the game, the rivalry, the history between, I think it was 27 years since Luton last beat us before Saturday. And to be fair, they did turn up and they deserved all 3 points. But I think particularly at this stage of the season, I don't think the players really need any more motivation to get up for this one. And we weren't at the races. From your perspective, what was the most disappointing aspect of Saturday?
Yeah, I think it was that we didn't get going, and if you need any more motivation to get going, it's a derby and it's a run-in. We're in second, we're in a fantastic position to get promotion to the Premier League. You don't need any more motivation than that. You don't need a motivational manager to fire you up anymore, because the motivation is there for everyone to see. So I was disappointed to see that from minute one, actually, we were on the back foot. It was Luton's day to perform, and they performed, and they completely deserved the win. They were the better team. They were set up really well. I think tactically we were actually outdone, to be honest with you. And I just think that was the most disappointing thing, the fact that we just didn't seem to turn up. And I think hopefully it's a case of this has the Bournemouth effect, where we recover and we go on a nice little run, because that would be the absolute perfect time. If we go on a 4-game win streak, then that's done. We're up. So I hope that it has that effect. It's a difficult opponent tomorrow. We don't really know how Norwich are approaching it, because I imagine Daniel Farke will have them really well drilled and probably having them forget all the partying that they've done. But it's easier said than done. It all depends on whether the Norwich that turns up is one that is still hungover from their promotion celebrations, or one that's looking to get the league guaranteed, because they could win the league tomorrow night, whether they want to get 100 points. So it's going to be a really difficult one, but we just need to make sure we turn up, because we didn't at all on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot mentioned about the Bournemouth being the catalyst, Sam, for what was a really good run by Watford. The game after that Bournemouth defeat was Wycombe at home, and no disrespect to Wycombe, but obviously they are near the bottom of the table, and it's an easier fixture, I think, than playing Norwich. And in a weird way, the fact that they lost to Bournemouth and the fact that they could secure the title, I believe, on Tuesday, are you a little bit concerned that we will see a Norwich team that will turn up? Because despite, as Elliot mentioned, if they've been on a few beers, I do think there was some good scenes from their dressing room, so I'm hoping we'll see that come the end of the season in our dressing room. But they've got quality, the likes of Cantwell, Pukki, if they're involved. They've got a number of really good players. Are you concerned by that?
I am concerned. I feel like any team in the top end of the Championship, whenever they do lose a disappointing game, I think, most teams, we do see an instant response from them. We've seen it a few times with Watford this year. I can't think of a time where we've lost back-to-back games. But yeah,
and I'm on it.
Yeah, so it is a frustrating. I mean, not frustrating, but it is something to be cautious about. I mean, I don't know if it's any consolation, but I mean, there's rumours that 3 of their main players will be out: Todd Cantwell, Pukki, and Hanley. Late assessment, so we might not see them from the start, but that'll be an absolutely massive plus for us. But let's just hope they are on the beach already and we can get the 3 points, which, if being honest, we need it more than them.
Just to jump in there, Sam, you mentioned about losing back-to-back. Watford actually haven't lost back-to-back games this season. We've drawn, the Millwall QPR commentary. Yeah, touch wood, as Elliot said. Actually, Elliot, are you going to be down at Carrow? Can we get a coach or a plane, or just jump on the team plane or something? Just get you down there.
Are there buses to Norfolk from here? I don't
Surely.
know. I don't know if we can get anywhere in and around sort of Carrow Road. But
Great angular railway. Get him on it.
If anyone's got an idea of how I can do that, do let me know.
I've got to ask you, Elliot, on Kika Femenino. I saw someone mention it in the comments. That is a massive blow for Watford, I think, arguably our player of the season. So, this season. How do we rectify that situation if you were Xisco Munoz?
It's a really tough one, and he has been the player of the season. He's been a mainstay in that team. No matter what's happened, he's barely missed a game, and when he has missed a game, we've not done well at all. So I think Jeremy Ngakia is as good a backup as you will find in this league, and arguably in the Premier League, he's a fantastic backup right back to have. So I just hope he's fit for the game. I think it's a late fitness test. I think the club confirmed on social media today. So basically, what Xisco Munoz has to do is pray that Jeremy Ngakia is fit for the game. I've not
do
really
anything
got
to get him out there. Faith. Even if he's half fit, have to get him out there.
Would you do that, Sam?
I've not got too much faith in Mark Navarro, to be honest with you. I don't think he's cut out for being run at in this kind of game, and I don't think he's the right player to slot in for a game like this. And at left back, I think we have got options as well. We've got the likes of Ben Wilmot, who I think could do a job there. I think Adam Messina, they also said will be a late test, so I assume he'll be at least in the squad. But yeah, I think we've just got to hope that Adam Messina and Jeremy Ngakia are there, and I think we'll be fine if that's the case, because I think they can handle the threat that Norwich pose on the wings. But yeah, it's worrying to lose Kiko, and I'm glad it's 2 yellows and not a straight red, because then we'd be in real trouble going into the run-in.
Sam, fullback situation. We finished the game with Akraf Lazar at left back and no right back, which kind of summed up the day.
I don't think Lazar didn't finish the game, did he? So it didn't end with any fullbacks on the pitch.
He was taken off, wasn't he? Yeah. So we actually didn't have any fullbacks on the pitch.
Can't do that tomorrow.
No, Buendia will have fun.
What a player. 2 questions, Sam. Number 1, would you go to a back 3? And number 2, if not, who would you play at fullback?
I don't know if I go to a back 3. I think we need to change it. I don't know whether that entails changing the formation, but I think we've been found out. Particularly if we are being honest, I know we try to put a positive spin on things, particularly when we're winning, but it's been really poor since the international break. All the performances, we should have probably lost to Reading, got a bit lucky at Middlesbrough, I thought, and we lost to Luton as well. So I think we have been found out a bit. I think we haven't really seen.
In what aspect, Sam? What aspect do you think we've been found out?
I think that teams are working out that if you stop Will Hughes, you stop Watford playing. And by sticking a couple of men around Will Hughes, then that completely nullifies the threat. I mean, I was watching the highlights back of the Middlesbrough game, and you see how close their midfielders got to them. We complimented Barry Bannon for playing so well against us, and that was, him nullifying Will Hughes. So I think we need to probably rethink the game plan, particularly in the middle. Really good to have hopefully Chalobah and Cleverley back as well, and those two go straight in my book, by the way, 100%. So it wouldn't shock me if we go to about 5 tomorrow night, but we certainly do need to rethink things.
Yeah, I think the big miss from Saturday, from my perspective, Elliot, was Nathaniel Chalobah. I mean, we missed his energy in there. Even Tom Cleverley, I think it was a game really set up for him. I think we mentioned it in the preview, didn't we, about Tom and even maybe a Dan Gosling. But I wanted to ask you about the midfield situation. Now, Carlos Sanchez started at the base of the midfield three, where Hughesy normally plays, and it was almost like another change, really. The fact we had to push Hughes a little bit further forward. PZ7 didn't play his best game. From your perspective, do we need to get Hughesy back to that number 6 ASAP for tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not like we can't either, because I think Dan Gosling, if one of Chalobah and Cleverley aren't fit for the game, then I think Dan Gosling's the right man to go in there as well. So I don't think it was the right call to start Carlos Sanchez. We all mentioned it on the preview that he's probably not the best fit to start the game. He's someone that we want coming off the bench to see out a game, half an hour, maybe 20 minutes left. So I was disappointed to see him start, because I just don't think it was right for that kind of game. So at all costs, put Hughes in at the 6, put him as far back as possible, and then have 2 of Chalobah, Cleverley and Dan Gosling in there. And I just think that's how you solve that problem. The difficulty is these teams have, as Sam said, figured out how to cause us problems, and that is by suffocating us in the midfield and making it difficult for us to play it out from the back, because they want to go and pass it to Will Hughes. They want to play it through the middle of the park rather than just sticking it straight out wide, and they just press high enough to stop us. Luton did that absolutely perfectly. They just stopped us getting the ball to the midfield, and that's exactly where we're stopped. So we've got to find a way around that, and I think actually having quite a dynamic midfield of Hughes, Cleverley and Chalobah does solve those problems. So I'm hoping that we put them in and all's well, and it just sort of fixes the problems that we've had. And I think it actually has the potential to. So it's key. I hope Cleverley's fully fit for the game, because I know he's not started yet since he's been back. He only played, I don't know how long it was, sort of just over half an hour against Luton. I don't know how Chalobah is, another late fitness test for him. But I'm just hoping at all costs we can get those 3. And then if not, have Dan Gosling in front of Hughes. But yeah, Hughes in the 6 is absolutely vital for this.
Yeah, agreed. Sam, I wanted to ask you actually about you mentioned, I think both of you lads actually mentioned we've been found out a bit. And I think, I think a number of Watford fans were frustrated by what we saw on Saturday. How do we kind of improve on that, really, from your perspective? How do we go about it? Because as Elliot mentioned, I think teams have now not worked, that's probably a bit too far from my perspective, but kind of realised that Will Hughes is literally the main cog in that midfield. We have to play through him, really. How do we go about that differently? Because we know how kind of lethal we can be from wide areas.
I think we have to be more adaptable to games, because I think that it's all very well setting up a game plan during the week and, executing it and training it all looks good. And then you turn up on a Saturday and teams are pressing us high and closing us down. And, I think it's just, as I said earlier, I think we need to have a plan B, a plan C, and ways to adapt in games. I think we did try to do that at Luton by bringing on Isaac Success. Wasn't too successful, but that was not intended at all.
Wait, can we just mention that Isaac Success made it into Kenilworth Road actually on a banner? I mean, that is unbelievable. He's going to go down in Watford folklore regardless.
We are massive. We should be in the Super League just for that. Absolutely huge.
I'm right, mate. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, no, I'll leave it.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm all right. Well. But yeah, I just think we need to be more adaptable. I think particularly when we've seen the last few weeks, Zhao has often been isolated in games. Teams when they just stick 2 men on Sarr. Sema's been ineffective at times as well. So I think it's just about adapting in games and finding ways of breaking down teams. And I think that's probably where Xisco Munoz is kind of naivety comes in the early stages of his management, and I'm sure that will come with time in his career. But yeah, we certainly need to find different ways of breaking teams down.
Elliot, I wanted to ask you actually, you mentioned about Cleverley and Chalobah, Gosling's another name. You know, there's a lot of experience there who weren't playing on Saturday. 4 games left of this championship season. You know, the situation is in our hands. We're kind of not stumbling over the line, but it's getting a little bit nervy. Would you be tempted to play some of the more experienced lads now? It might not be as pretty, I guess, with some of the players. It might be a little bit of a disservice, but it might not be as, you know, for example, Zinchenko is a technically very good player, but he doesn't have the experience of a Dan Gosling in there who's been promoted with Bournemouth. If you were Xisco Munoz, would you be tempted to put in experience at all costs at this stage?
To some extent, I don't know if at all costs. For example, I wouldn't want us to just put Craig Cathcart in because he got promoted with us last time, for example. And I think with João Pedro and Andre Gray, you could make a case to bring in Andre Gray because he's got the experience of promotion. I can understand that as well to an extent. But at the same time, I think João Pedro, the quality is there, and he's just been sort of nullified. His threat has been nullified in a couple of games recently. But I don't think that's any slight on him. I don't think that's anything down to really his inexperience. I just think they've really tried to basically smother our talent and stop the likes of João Pedro and Sarr from playing. So I wouldn't take out Ismaila Sarr and I wouldn't take out João Pedro just because they haven't been promoted. But then at the same time, if we can bring in someone like Dan Gosling into the midfield just to shore us up, have that experience, he knows how to close out a game. He knows exactly how the championship works. So yeah, in little instances where it's fairly like for like, then I'd be up for it. But if it's wholesale changes where we might be taking out William Troost-Ekong for Craig Cathcart or something like that, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth making huge changes from now until the end of the season. On
the topic of William Troost-Ekong, actually, Sam, Stephen McCook said, get Cabot or Cathcart in for Troost-Ekong. Now, I think you've kind of questioned his performances, I guess, recently. I think since the international break, is that fair?
Yeah.
With Troost. Would you be tempted to, I don't think he had his best game on Saturday again, really. Would you be tempted to bring one of those guys in?
It's really difficult, that. I'd say if it was one of them, I'd be more looking at Craig Cathcart. I feel like, you know, in terms of fitness and the know-how in the championship, more likely to be him. But Troost-Ekong hasn't been good enough recently. I would say he's the weak link in our team. I saw, I was reading the chat, Lou Orns mentioned that another tactic team to have against us is just allowing Troost-Ekong to have the ball because he seems to give it away a lot. And that's a massive problem. It also seems to be quite shaky at the back as well. And it's frustrating because we've seen glimpses with Troost throughout the season and some really good periods for him as well, where he's been largely solid. We know he's a leader from our Tom Cleverley interview. Make sure to have a watch if you haven't seen it yet.
Link in the description.
But yeah, I don't know if it's too late to try and build new centre-back partnerships, but it is certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of Wilmot chat actually in the comment section as well, Elliot. I mean, we don't know the situation there, what's happening with Ben. Bit of a bizarre one, really, because we all know how talented he is. Yeah, that is a strange one. And from my perspective, Elliot, and let me know your thoughts on this, you know, I'd much rather Ben Wilmot play left back than Akraf Lazar come Tuesday night. Do you think we need to? Well, I think we need to get him back in, don't we?
Yeah, he's played left back before this season, and he did a pretty good job for the most part. I think he was okay. I'd like him in the team at some point. You know, in the next 10 years or so, I'd like to see him actually get a run in the team or even the squad for that matter. And I think if Adam Messina isn't fit to play the game, it's probably not worth rushing him back. But at the same time, you do sort of need that natural left back in there, particularly against Emiliano Buendia, who will cause problems. So, yeah, if Messina isn't fit, Ben Wilmot, I think, is the logical player to put in there. I think I doubt Achraf Lazar's confidence is at an all-time high right now, and I do feel bad for him because he was chucked in at the deep end on Saturday, but at the same time, he didn't really do himself any favours. So I think
yeah, it wasn't a great pass, was it?
Ben Wilmot is the right choice. It's going to be a weird one against Norwich because there's a lot of different factors in there, and there's also, like Sam said, with the injuries, if they've got Grant Hanley out, then that's big because they've not really got any other centre backs. They've got Zimmerman. I don't know if Zimmerman's even fit. They've got Ben Gibson out, I think, for the season, which is pretty rough. And then there's their current centre half's a young guy called Omo Bamidele, I think, who's doing really well, but I think he is their only fit centre half pretty much. So if that's the case, then brilliant. sort of run at them. But yeah, it's difficult from a defensive point of view when you've got the likes of Pukki that might be fit. You've got Buendia who is fit. You've got Cantwell. Even Arnel Hernandez, for example, will cause problems. So I think Wilmot's got to be in there at left back if Messina isn't.
Yeah,
I think we'll talk about just quickly as well the left-hand side. I think that'll be really interesting tomorrow, because if Adam Messina isn't fit, I mean, I personally wouldn't play Ken left wing tomorrow. I think it's been too ineffective recently, and I'd move Zinkernagel out onto the wing. But if that is the case, Messina isn't fit, I'd probably move. I'd rather have Ken at left back.
Okay.
In a back, I know even in a back four, I would say Ken would even be better than Lazar.
Sorry against Buendia though.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't happen. But to be honest, I'd rather that Stevenson guy from the under-23s come and play.
Toby Stevenson, that I think he played against Oxford this season, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think the only situation I'm finding a little bit bizarre is with Wilmot. We all know he's a very talented boy. He's in the England under-21s. We've seen him, I think, arguably one of the best defensive displays this season as a team was against Norwich in Xisco Munoz' first game, and it was him and Sierralta at the back. Now, I think that is probably our best centre-back partnership, because I think what you get with Sierralta is that physicality, someone who dominates in the air, bully strikers. And then you've got Ben Wilmot, who's, I think, probably the best on the ball, because he's really, really comfortable, particularly for his age on the ball. And I thought they complemented each other well. So I have to admit, I'm surprised that he's kind of been frozen out the team a little bit and hasn't had that opportunity. But as you mentioned, Elliot, I think we'd probably have to see him on the bench, because we're not blessed with options really with Kiko out. I think, Lazar didn't play his best game, did he? He was awful against Luton. Don't think he'll be starting. Messina's obviously touch and go as well. I mean, there's a lot up in the air. I'll tell you what, Elliot, last question actually on the lineup. Strikers. Now, Sam, you mentioned it on Twitter about João, saying he offers a lot off the ball, which I do agree with. João, again, was a little bit isolated on Saturday. How do we rectify that? Because it's been a couple of games where he's I think Middlesbrough kind of started at Middlesbrough, where he just hasn't been as involved as we'd probably like him to. Yeah,
and I think actually bringing Tom Cleverley back in could weirdly help that. I think the midfield could solve a lot of problems if it's back to normal. We know Cleverley's good at getting forward, good at connecting midfield to attack. And I think it probably makes João Pedro slightly less isolated. I think it doesn't help actually that Ismaila Sarr is being double marked and that he's just being really, just isolated from the rest of the team as well. So I think if we can get that front three working as a three, because at the moment it's been three individuals, if we can get them working as a three together, I think that sort of solves the problems. And I think Cleverley is actually the key to that as well. So hopefully they sort of lay off Sarr a little bit. I know that they got Dimitris Giannoulis, or I think that's
he's got a red card, didn't he? We were actually, funny enough, we were linked with him in the summer.
Yeah, we were. And then there was, I think they had Jacob Lungi Sorensen at left back for the reverse fixture, and Sarr had a lot of joy on that right side. So hopefully it's Sorensen that's starting at left back tomorrow night. So I think it's just, if you stop Sarr being isolated, you stop João Pedro being isolated. You bring Cleverley back in and he can play a bit further forward. That also helps João Pedro. It's just getting the system sort of back working, because I think it's just looked a little bit fractured at times, a little bit, I don't know, it's a hard one, but I think bringing in the core and having it back to the way it was might actually solve a lot of these problems and hopefully get us back working, back moving in this final few games, where it's just going to be absolutely crucial to have the momentum to play Swansea, Brentford and Millwall, who will also cause us a lot of problems.
Sam, do you actually think playing, as Elliot mentioned, going into these final 4 games of the season and just getting your thoughts on it, do you think it actually works in our favour playing teams who are a little bit higher up? Because it seems like we, not to kind of tempt fate here, but we have turned up against the better sides in this division. We have struggled with, i.e. teams like Luton, and maybe a bit more direct, I think, we particularly away from home. Away from, started pretty poorly. But from your perspective, do you think that could play into our hands, or do you think actually that's going to be could be a bit of a slip up for us?
So I want to pull you up on a point. Are you sure our record against the top team is actually that good? I think we've only won 2 against the top 6 this season. I think Reading and Norwich.
Barnsley are up there, that might help as well, because Barnsley weren't up there.
Reading, well, we beat Reading, Cardiff away. Blackburn at the time were fighting around the top 6. Yeah. Barnsley.
I think
Norwich.
Do you know what? Just on that though, I just feel like I actually feel like the Norwich game, the Brentford game, and the Swansea game will be more suited to us than the Millwall game. I've said from the start that the two games I'm most nervous for are Luton and Millwall, because first of all, they got nothing to play for. They got literally nothing. They had nothing riding on their season. Luton, this was their cup final. Millwall, they're going to come to us to spoil the party, and they're just going to sit deep and play for a 0-0 draw like they did against Brentford the other day, and they successfully got it, like they did earlier in the season against us and got it, and I think they did against Swansea as well. So I think it will benefit us the way that Norwich will play high up and probably try to press us, but play much higher up the pitch, and that'll give us space in behind. Yeah.
Elliot, from your perspective, how are you feeling last 4 games of the season? Yeah, I think to be honest, just to touch on that, about the top 6 record. I don't think it's amazing, but I don't think it's I probably overdid that a little bit, but I don't think it's absolutely terrible. I think our away form hadn't been great at the start of the season. It has picked up, to be fair, recently. Elliot, from your perspective, last 3 of the top 4 we have to play. How are you feeling?
I feel like it's actually more weighing on confidence than performances at the moment, because people were saying that we need however many points, but it also depends on who we're getting the points against, because if we get a win against Swansea and Brentford and then no more, we'll be fine. And I think it's just about getting the confidence back. If we beat Norwich tomorrow, it'll be absolutely massive, because then we can play Millwall with a bit more confidence. We're at home, and we can actually say, well, I know you're going to try and play defensive football, but we've got some of the best talent in the league, and we'll sort of beat that defensive strategy. So I think it's so much is resting on confidence, and that's why it's so good that Brentford and Swansea dropped points. People are worrying about Bournemouth. I don't think it's worth worrying about Bournemouth just yet, because they are still lagging behind a little bit with the fact that they've played one more than Brentford.
They're a team to watch in the playoffs, though. They're hitting form at the right time, Bournemouth.
I think it's hit the point for me. I don't want to sound too negative, but it is automatic promotional bust. I don't think it's always the case that if you're a team that just misses out, we know it before from when we lost to Leeds on the final day, that if you're a team that just misses out on automatic promotion, you're in trouble for the playoffs, and it's pretty much you're out of it before it even begins. So it's just about confidence. We just need to make sure that we can see out these last 4 games. A win against Norwich would do wonders for that, and I actually think it gets to the point where if we beat Norwich, we're pretty much up. So
Stephen said that in the comments. If we win tomorrow, I generally think we're up. Sam, you agree with that?
No, I agree with that. I was just thinking as well. I feel like this year is going to be the building for the best ever playoff final, because they're normally really boring games. I think it's going to be Bournemouth against Barnsley, and I think it's going to be a cracking game. Both of them play really good football. That's just looking ahead, not hopefully.
Sorry, Sam. I've just seen a really interesting comment here from Callum Dean, who said, "I feel we perform worse when it's in our hands. When we have played first, we have always tended to take advantage. However, if we've played late and there's more pressure, we always tend to drop points." Interesting angle, that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really difficult one.
Sorry, Elliot, go on.
I think to an extent it's been proven by the evidence that we've had in the past couple of weeks. So I can understand it. I don't know if it might be a coincidence that we've struggled when we've played later, but it does feel like we do like having the first game, and we like sort of making the statement ourselves and then saying, right, you've got to match that, because I was going to say Brentford and Swansea don't thrive under pressure, but I don't think any of the 3 thrive under pressure, including us. I think it's one of those things where if we can put the pressure on them, then we've really caused them problems.
Are you worried about Bournemouth? Do you think Bournemouth can catch us?
Not yet.
No, I agree.
I'm more worried about us. If we have to be worried about Bournemouth, I'm more worried about us, because they were so far behind, and it's got to the point where if we drop enough points to let them above us, then we actually don't deserve promotion.
No, I could absolutely agree with that from Elliot. Absolutely bang on. I'll tell you what, to wrap up, score predictions, fellas. Elliot, you first, mate. Considering you're not a Carrow.
I say 0-0, but it can't be in a game like that. It can't be 0-0. I'll say 2-2.
2-2. I'm going to go with a score draw. I'm going to go 1-1. Sam.
Don't kill me. 2-1 Norwich.
Oh, Sam Yuko, shocking. Just to wrap up, we've got a few of your comments. Alex says, top lads, love the content. Thank you very much, Alex. We've got a couple more. Thank you to everyone who watched today, by the way. Really do appreciate it. And let us know your thoughts on the European Super League, all that chat that we talked at the top of the show. Also, Watford at the moment, how you feeling? Getting a little bit nervous. Dan's gone 3-2 Orns. Pond is being cleaned. We've got
if we win and win on Saturday, is that done mathematically?
I think Brentford and Swansea have to drop points. either. I don't know how many games they played before us, but they've pretty much not got a win between now and Saturday.
I know I'm saying this on record, but I can't see Swansea and Brentford not dropping points before the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? I know we have to play them as well, but it could be us. But I can't see those two teams not. I mean, not dropping points personally, but that might come to bite me in the backside.
I still think as long as it's not tomorrow night, because of the amount of time in between the games, I think we could afford to lose one out of Millwall, Swansea, and Brentford.
It's more confidence. That's the worrying thing. If we lose 3-0 to Norwich, then I'll panic. I don't think we will lose 3-0 to Norwich, but then it's really like the confidence is shot. So I think it's actually more the implications of a drop in confidence than the actual drop of points. That's the thing for me, because I think actually if we're confident against Brentford and Swansea, Brentford have sort of had a shift in their tactics and it looks quite good, but then they couldn't do the job against Millwall, and then Swansea are just drawing against Wickham. So if we're confident, we can beat them, and that's just the thing. It's about maintaining that confidence.
Absolutely. What a way to wrap up. Thank you very much, lads, for joining me. Thanks to everyone who watched live. If you're watching this back, please do leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18. We'll be back tomorrow for a match reaction after Norwich City versus Watford at Carrow Road. Big game. Big period for the football club. We'll be here on WD18 talking about it. As I said, leave a like on the video. Comment down below your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'll see you very soon. Come on, you want it.
Come on, you want it.
You want